Welcome back to another gripping episode of Rational Discourse Weekly. This is episode 33, filmed on Tuesday, January 14th, 2014. I'm William Garrison.
And I'm Michael Aune.
This week we talk about Satan, a Seventh-day Adventist pastor who becomes an atheist for a year, and we all up in that Pope.
Oh, we're all up in the Pope's shenanigans. Phrasing, William. Anyway, you should watch what's coming next. After the
beep.
After the title.
Beep.
That happens. That seems like a good place to start. Satanists. That does.
So tell me about the Satanist monument.
Well, no. First, we should start with, hey, we're back. It's only been like
a few months.
2 months.
Two and a half or something.
2.5. Okay, it's been a while. Which I'm sure you're all weeping with much gnashing of teeth. But we have returned in the new year with a commitment now that we have the Drobo back up, I assume, which is why this is happening. We were having some technical issues. And also we were busy with the holidays and not spending money on it, which is fine. But
basically, it made sense that we would rejuvenate the site and the podcast starting the new year. Basically, I just started a new job, so I've been busy with that, and
I actually have as well. So
so we're working through some things, and but yeah, we're here to stay, and 2014 we hope is a really big year for us.
Yes.
So
I plan on making it such.
We'll
I don't know how.
Woo!
Teamwork makes the dream work.
Yep.
But so anyway, we're back, and there should be more and more stuff coming out. Trying to set my timer up so we don't go long, because we can tend to be a little long-winded, and I don't know how much people like that, and we're done. So anyway,
the Satanist
Happy New Year, and Merry Hanukkah, and Happy Kwanzaa. Ramadan was, I think, earlier?
Chris Mahanza.
Quite a bit earlier.
Chris Mahana Kwanzaa.
Yeah.
Plus Festivus, which is
pretty much for the rest of us. But anyway, yeah, so we're back. Yay. More articles to follow. I've fallen a bit out of that. A little bit better than the podcast, but not by much. So I plan on trying to double down on that. Also plan on trying to focus on fun links to content that I don't actually have to write about. Turns out that's a lot of work. So I'd like to just be like, I'm going to try and do some highlights. Here's a cool thing I found.
Yeah, maybe like this weekend, like these are some things that I've noticed, and maybe a snippet. Maybe you're like, I think this is bullshit. And then a link or something.
It won't just be link whoring, because that would be inappropriate. But anyway, just trying to really get the site to be more of an interactive experience so that you actually will want to come back. Which I'm hoping you have, because otherwise we're talking to no one. And that's really depressing.
Yeah.
So anyway, it's been a lot going on, sort of. The Pope still being popey, and people like his popiness. No, we've already sort of touched on that. So probably not much to say there. We had our typical War on Christmas shenanigans. Actually, a little bit quieter this year, I think, than like the year before. I didn't feel quite as enraged as often, so that was nice. Though there was the fun little flap that popped up in Oklahoma because they put up a monument of the Ten Commandments at a courthouse, which, people tend to be a little annoyed with when they're not Christian. It's weird, I know. But, so the argument was that, well, if you allow that, then you have to allow either nothing or everything.
Right.
That's something I've written about 2 holiday seasons ago.
Yeah, our stance, I think at least that we've discussed in the past, is that it's actually better if you just allow nothing, because then it's a non-issue. But
what I find interesting is that the argument was coming up, and they go, if we have to... Oh, sorry, it was the state capitol, by the way, not a courthouse. But the idea is, if you're going to allow one, then you have to allow all. But then the retort is, well, that's stupid, because it'll just turn into this crazy display of anyone who wants to put anything up there. And my response is, you're absolutely right, which is why you don't allow the first one, because then you don't have the ridiculous display. It doesn't turn into a fight. and you're not being prejudiced against anyone. You're just saying, for the sake of simplicity and the fact that government really has no reason to be talking about religion at all, leave it be. Leave it off. But in any case, so the Satanists, a group of Satanists, I believe they're out of New York or New Jersey. Where are we? Let me see. I'm going to find it. New York based, yes. Satanic Temple submitted an application for a satanic monument to be built on the same... Dude, look what I did. I broke the table. I don't know if you can see this on camera. There it is. Oh, wow, it's crazy. Technical difficulties continue, I see. But in any case, it's a big, like, goat-headed, sort of your typical Satan-y looking dude with, like, two children sitting next to him, or standing next to him on his epic throne. Nothing terrible. I mean, he's not eating them. They're just sort of, like, smiling at him. But I think it looks kind of awesome. And just for the sheer absurdity of it all, I hope it goes up. But I more hope that they just take the other one down, and then we all move on with our lives. But I just thought that was hilarious that, like, the Satanists were the first ones to, like, we got this, bro. We got this. It wasn't the ACLU, like, getting up anyone's ass. It was just...
And I'm just hoping that the people that are, you know, boycotting this satanic monument, I'm hoping that they see the irony in them wanting to not allow something, but then their stuff's okay. Like, I hope they...
No, they won't. Because otherwise this argument would have been settled a long time ago. I share your desire for, like, common sense and a sort of just moderate level of hypocrisy self-awareness. Hypocritical self-awareness, but it's not. And anyone who argues the other position apparently, like, hates all religion or is trying to persecute Christians, and I don't get it. I just want to leave the argument alone. At the end of the day, drop it. And the best way to drop it is to just not let it start in the first place. So just don't let this shit happen. We'd be way better off. But no one asks me. So I go to YouTube and I bitch and moan about it. It's totally cool, though. But anyway, that was just a small little fun thing. Usually, we'll throw a link up for it.
It'll be in the show notes.
It'll be out there. There was something you had sent a link to me about a Seventh-day Adventist pastor who's going to live as an atheist for a year.
Yeah, so two articles were actually on patheos.com. We'll link to that in the show notes as well.
Will we?
The first article was actually basically talking about the fact that this pastor was going through this experiment. He was basically going to try to act as if there wasn't a God. He was going to read atheist material, watch atheist videos on YouTube. He was going to go to atheist meetings. He was going to try to live...
We call those covens.
He was going to try to live as an atheist. The problem, as the friendly atheist, the author of the articles on Patheos...
Hement Meda, I'm probably slaughtering that. Good guy, though, and I've started following his stuff more and more regularly. We'll link to him, too.
Yeah.
Links for everyone. No upvotes, though. We're not doing that shit. No upvotes.
But he was basically calling out the problems with the way the pastor was approaching this situation. And the biggest problem is belief.
Belief is a passive thing. You don't choose to believe something. It's not like you just, like, flip a switch and you're like, well, now I'm an atheist for a year. When that alarm goes off, I'll flip back on the Christian switch. Yeah. And away I go.
Just a quick aside that actually is kind of an example of this. Michael didn't have to really deal with this in the same way, but that's kind of how I came to the conclusion that I was an atheist. I had to be honest with myself about what I really believed. I was still latching on to my Christian past because it was convenient, because it was comforting or whatever. Yeah. But at the end of the day, I didn't believe.
To be fair, you were in high school, you were chasing bitches,
yeah,
skateboarding.
I told myself it wasn't as important as those things. I'll deal with it later when it becomes more important.
Which, when it comes to your eternal salvation, is the right mindset. I'll deal with it later because there's no way I get hit by a bus or kill myself while skateboarding while trying to impress girls as a 17-year-old.
Yeah, when you're younger, you feel invincible. Religion can wait.
Did you know I actually was invincible? Yeah. It's crazy. I don't have evidence to prove that, but I'm going to go ahead and say I was, past tense. Please don't try it now. I am not bulletproof.
All right.
Anyway, a good little aside there.
But so basically, the pastor. Most people think that he obviously wasn't going about the right way. Not that there's a right way to go about it, except that I do applaud the fact that he was willing to at least hear what atheists had to say. If nothing else,
he's being open to the material, what people, the
mindset. I probably would have preferred him wording it or going about it in a way, well, I don't know what all these atheists are talking about. I'm going to find out, instead of saying, well, I'm going to become an atheist for 90 days or a year in this case.
But I mean, part of me thinks that the way he phrases it is because it's easier to sell. And I think he's going to be blogging about it and stuff like that. So I get that. It's totally probably a little bit of self-promotion for the next year. He's already got a bit of groundswell and he hasn't even really started on this thing. That being said, I'm cool with him. I'm cool with him going into it even if he doesn't believe. And maybe he wants to disprove it. Because if he really does feel those things, and he comes out the other end and he goes, man, those guys know what they're talking about more often than not. Their position is not on its face absurd. And, although maybe I still disagree a year later, it's not an intellectually vacuous position to hold. And that, I think, would do a lot, maybe if nothing else, for our public image. Maybe one day we will be better than pedophiles to most people. That is small victories, just small ones.
So, anyways, Ryan Bell is the guy's name.
No.
He was evidently let go.
Yeah, he was an adjunct professor at Azusa Pacific University and Fuller Theological Seminary. And he was a former pastor of a Seventh-day Adventist church. And I'm quoting here from the article, to which we will link to steal a line from one of my favorite YouTube channels, the Doodly Doos. Yeah.
So he was let go, and this article actually mentions basically the Friendly Atheist is trying to gather donations. He wants this guy not to be left out in the dark, and we're not saying you should donate or you shouldn't donate. To be honest, I haven't thought enough about it to know if that's a good idea. I don't even know the guy that well, so I don't know what his financial situation is.
Well, he said specifically, please don't. They started this petition because at first it came out that he got fired from his job, and he really wasn't fired. He was dismissed basically because he was in breach of the sort of contract that he had given, because he was supposed to be, in a way, sort of an advocate for the Christian position. Supposed to be sort of a spiritual leader, and he said that since I was effectively going to be abdicating that role during this year-long process, they were like, well, you're kind of sort of conflict of interest. We'd like to talk to you again in a year. We don't want to leave on bitter terms, but he specifically actually called back and said, hey, I feel uncomfortable with this. Let's not go this route. So I give him a lot of credit for that, because apparently people were immediately starting to donate, which, let's go atheists / secularists / skeptics / humanists / okay, there's a lot of us. They don't overlap necessarily, people. You really got to call them out.
But they've already raised $27,000.
Even after he said not to. That's, I don't know, maybe he won't accept the money. I don't know if that could be something that would be refunded. In any case, it's cool. I like to think that it could end up well, as long as this guy isn't secretly trying to do some smear campaign, which no evidence to support that at this point. He seems to have tried to be fair in his interpretation of what he was trying to examine, and then didn't try and steal all of our money when, not me, but some of us tried to donate because they felt that he'd been wronged by a religious institution.
So just to circle it back around, I think the point of bringing this up is, if we're hoping at the very least that some interesting stories and articles come out of his experiment. I
want to see his face after he watched all of Hitchens in one day on YouTube, and he just stumbles out of a room drinking scotch and smoking a cigarette. And that would be entertaining.
I'll be interested to see what happens.
Yeah.
Either way,
we will try and stay up on that, assuming he sort of sticks to it and produces a lot of content worth talking about. Because we're not going to bore you with boring shit. Unless you think our shit's boring, in which case we're going to continue to bore you for a while. And that's fine. What else in the world? There's been stuff. The Pope keeps confusing people because he says things that liberals and secularists really want to like. And then he says things that we really don't generally like.
Yeah, so we kind of made our overall position clear. It's like regardless of even if he is more liberal than the previous pope, he's still he's head
liberal
of the...
in tone, but not in word.
Yeah, he's still basically the head of the Catholic Church, and an entity that we don't agree with. So,
interestingly, though, I think I do agree with his sort of economic focus, like saying, "Hey, we're doing wrong by the poor."
Yeah,
I mean that. I think it at least helps some of the hypocrisy that I feel like, especially in the Catholic Church, which is just riddled with cash. Even after all of the billions of dollars they've spent on child molestation lawsuits. But in any case, I like that at least some of that in-your-face hypocrisy has at least been mitigated by what he's saying, whether or not it turns into anything. But yeah, we've already said he still is on opposite sides of us on sort of a lot of key issues. And so, although cool for being a nice pope, ultimately doesn't change a whole lot in my mind. Actions speak louder than words, and so far it's just a lot of words. I'd like them to be actions. That'd be cool. However, that being said, I am wary of religious institutions getting too down and dirty with the poor, because
there's a certain...
it's a little dangerous. I don't like the idea that they'll be using their wealth and influence to help people, maybe in good faith, but then also proselytizing at the same time and spreading their message, which I disagree with wholeheartedly.
People in any vulnerable state. So children, we've already talked about in the past how child indoctrination is one of the ways that churches have stayed alive and, over the past 1,000 years plus. And then, the poor, when they're reaching out for help, and the ones that come with that help, as a religious institution. I don't know if it's similar from a philosophy or psychology perspective, but it's like Stockholm syndrome. Your captors being nice to you, and there's probably another word for it.
Well, I mean, they've done studies and stuff to show that doing a small turn for someone, a good turn for someone, basically induces a need to reciprocate in the other person. So it's a common selling technique that you go to a used car salesman and he's going to say, "Hey, I talked to my boss and I can get you $1,000 off this car, but you got to sign today." And you will feel an obligation, since he went out of his way for you, to go out of your way for him. And maybe you signed a deal that you otherwise wouldn't because you feel obligated to do that. I cannot help but fear that some of that would be manifest in the relationship between the people who are feeding you, maybe housing you, maybe clothing you, and basically sort of going along with what they say. Now, of course, belief is different, because whether or not you actually believe it, but I think that it's an opening, and I don't necessarily think it's an intentional, but it's quality marketing. These people know what they're doing. These tactics have worked in the past, so why would they not use them in the future?
Well, let's talk about belief, and I don't know if you know the answer to this, but let's say someone...
I do.
Let's say someone is on that fence. They're here in the middle. They don't know if they believe or not.
It's very uncomfortable. It's a very narrow fence, sort of pointy.
Yeah, it stabs you. It's a stabby fence.
Stupid stabby
If you're being stabbed on that fence, you're right there in the middle. Mm-hmm. In terms of belief, is it something that the good experiences that you would get from a church would maybe hop over that line, and because you feel good, it's almost like you take that leap and you just convince yourself that you believe in a God.
Yeah, the idea you associate it with the principles, even if in fact the principles do not have anything to do with it. You
basically, and I have this at like a real life example of this. I have an uncle who cleaned up his life at some point. He was into drugs. He had been to jail, and he associates, at least based on the conversation I've had with him before, he associates his good fortune with the church. Yeah. He cleaned up, and I have a feeling that he thinks that somehow Jesus saved him, that Jesus helped him through that bad time, and so that it's like the sentimental part of his brain is just always making those associations to...
Well, I mean, I think almost to a fault, almost absolutely, emotion is what drives religious belief, not rational. I mean, I don't think too many people like sit down, read a rational discourse on like why God should exist or why Christianity is right and goes, yep, now I believe. No, I think it's tied up with the emotional experiences that most people have. Maybe experiential knowledge where they feel that they had it at a moment or an epiphany or an awakening and they come to God. But those are very much like personal, emotionally powerful things. And so, yeah, exactly what you're saying. When he goes into the, AA, and part of like AA is you got to give yourself up to like a higher power. Now, it's not explicitly Christian or anything, but I think we all know where that's going. So, yeah, hey, I got my life together, and part of that was giving myself up to God. It like reinforces the belief that God then was there for you, and then this sort of self-feeding cycle. I don't like that as a potential mechanism for exploiting others.
Yeah,
I think it's iffy. Again, I don't necessarily think this is being done consciously, but let's face it, techniques that work are ones that are exploited, whether we're conscious of it or not. And so, as much as I really want poor people to be helped around the world, and the Catholic Church has a lot of means to do that, it is nerve-wracking that going part and parcel with that is Catholic doctrine and Catholic teachings. And it's getting, like in Africa, there's a huge push in Africa right now for the Catholic Church to go in because they can exercise their influence. They are one of the most powerful institutions. Governments are weak, social services are practically non-existent. The church becomes a de facto form of like institutionalized governance and support, and that gives you a lot of power to sway people. And so I honestly think that in the next 20 to 30 years, right now, maybe we're really focused on like the Middle East and sort of like militant Islam and Islamists and that sort of thing. I wouldn't be surprised if in 20 or 30 years, if there's been a heavy push, which right now evangelicals are moving in, Catholics are already there, but they're trying to expand, and they're doing things. You're getting Nigeria, I think, passed today a law that was heavily backed by a lot of the religious leaders there and from outside, like in the U.S., basically criminalizing the gay lifestyle, gay sex, gay propaganda, you name it. Uganda's got a strong push now. It's a very heavily Christian country, and that's happening. And so there are areas where maybe they're losing the culture wars here, but they're not losing them everywhere. And when that clout is turned towards people who really need it, I think that influence is more easily exercised. So we'll see who's ruined next by religion. So I think that should actually be a call to arms to us, though, as secularists and humanists. If we're really going to walk the walk and talk the talk, we got to be willing to go to these places that are torn up and do our best. And there are organizations that are out there doing it, but we don't have the unity, we don't have the direction, we don't have the resources. And so I'm hoping that as we maybe come out of the shadows...
As we come out of the shadows, as we grow, and as we're vocal about our stance.
And as we finally develop the superpowers we've been developing in secret.
With our powers combined.
I know. It's going to be great. I'm going to be able to hover 4 inches off the ground for 5 seconds at a time.
And I will be able to consume large amounts of Bud Light Lime in a single sitting.
Not cranberritas. Warm cranberritas. These are what he coaxes me over here with.
Margarita with a twist.
But they're still free, so next time I'll buy, and I won't suffer as much.
Free dollars.
Anyways,
those are the only topics we have to cover for today. Thanks again for sticking with us. Again,
appreciate it.
2014 is going to be a big year for us.
Like things. I know this is bad, and we're going to have to start doing this more, and I hate it, and I apologize. If you see a thumbs up anywhere, click it on our site or our YouTube channel.
If you follow us, either one of us or 37G Podcasts on Twitter, you can retweet or, you know.
I'd love to break 50 followers. I should tweet more to earn it, but I'd like to be lazy.
He's at Michael Aune, Aune.
Yeah.
And I'm at William Garrison. I think I almost have 600 followers.
I think we have, links on the website, links on the YouTube channel. Do we have Twitter links on the YouTube? Whatever, we'll figure it out. Look for links and clicky things.
And again, that's an administration thing. That's one of the things that I'll be doing in 2014 is going through our different sites, basically where our content is.
Yeah.
I've actually added our podcast to some other repositories. So we're on the Windows Phone repository, which unfortunately I can't create a link for our show notes. But if you have a Windows Phone, you can search for Rational Discourse Weekly there. We're on iTunes again, because I had to recreate our iTunes link when we changed our website. We're on Stitcher, TuneIn, and then we also have an RSS link. There's one more repository that's coming. I just haven't gotten the submission link for it yet. But
so regardless of what you're using at this point, you should be able to get our podcasts if you would like to just listen to them and avoid this area.
Yeah, we long term, I don't know if it'll happen in 2014, but long term we'll look into video hosting so that we can get the video version of our podcast hosted on iTunes and other places as well. Yeah. For now, YouTube's fine. YouTube is a growing community.
Yeah, let me get to 50 Twitter followers. Then we worry about video hosting.
Then we'll talk.
Yeah.
And but yeah, just we're out there. Please let us know what you think.
Shamelessly promote us, please. And I will keep my shirt on for every future podcast. Is that good enough? Do you think that'll work?
That is good.
That'll work. All right then. Bye.
Welcome back to another gripping episode.
Woke in a world.
No, I want to do it like the Downton Abbey. Welcome back to another episode.
No, I want to do in a world.
Rational Discourse Weekly. Because it kind of sounds British. You can make it with a British accent.
Yeah, but you just sound like you're talking to a camera.
You're not a Downton Abbey fan, right? Is that just your mom?
I just haven't watched the 3rd season. Who do we appreciate?
Satanists?
I mean, I don't not appreciate them.